Rain hammered the tin roof of the Iron Vultures clubhouse like a warning drum. The night meeting was nearly over when the door creaked open. Before we start this story, tell us, where in the world are you watching this from? And if you enjoy our stories, please like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss another story of human and bikers' kindness. A boy no older than 10 stood there, soaked to the bone, shoes squelching with each hesitant step. His hoodie clung to him, and in his fist he held something shiny, a single silver coin. Grizz, the burly sergeant-at-arms, rose from his chair. "Kid, you lost?" The boy's lower lip trembled, but his voice came out clear, sharp enough to cut the silence. "Can you kill my stepmom?" Every man in that room froze. The jukebox hummed faintly in the background. Then the boy's shoulders shook, tears spilling down his cheeks as the weight of his words crashed down. Hawk, the chapter president with years of hard miles in his eyes, crouched to the boy's level. "Son, you're gonna need to tell us everything." And just like that, one question would unravel a chain of events no one in that room would ever forget. His name was Tommy Harker. 10 years old. He'd walked nearly 5 miles through back roads in the rain to reach the clubhouse, clutching that silver coin the whole way. Hawk led him inside, draping a worn leather jacket over his shoulders. The warmth made Tommy shiver harder, like his body was finally allowed to break. They gave him hot cocoa. He sat on the couch, dwarfed by the leather giants around him. Slowly, the story came out in broken sentences. His stepmom, Denise, wasn't just mean, she was dangerous. The kind of woman who smiled in public and lashed out in private. His dad had died 2 years earlier in a work accident. Tommy was left with her, and she made sure he knew it. "She locks me in the basement," he whispered. "Says nobody'd believe me." Grizz's hands clenched into fists. One of the younger bikers cursed under his breath. Tommy's eyes darted to Hawk. "You help people, right?" Hawk nodded slowly. "Yeah, kid. We do." Hawk noticed the coin Tommy kept fidgeting with, rubbing it like a talisman. "What's that?" he asked. Tommy held it out. It was an old silver dollar, worn smooth from years of touch. "It was my dad's," he said softly. "He said, if I ever got in trouble real bad, I could trade it for help. He was friends with you guys. Said the Vultures keep their word." A murmur went around the room. Hawk remembered Tommy's father, Nate Harker. A quiet man with a backbone of steel. He'd ridden with them briefly before settling down. The coin was more than metal. It was a promise. Hawk closed Tommy's fingers around it. "You don't have to trade that for anything. You already got our attention." Tommy looked up at him, hope flickering through the fear. Hawk rose, his leather jacket creaking. "All right, brothers. This ain't just another story. This is one of ours. And nobody hurts one of ours." The Vultures didn't kick in doors without knowing what they were walking into. Hawk sent out 2 scouts, Brick and Smoke, to quietly check Tommy's house while he stayed behind with the boy. Tommy described the basement, the cold concrete floor, the chain on the door, the single bare bulb that flickered all night. Hawk listened in silence, jaw tightening with every detail. "She says if I scream, no one will come," Tommy murmured. "She's right. No one ever did." Smoke returned an hour later, rain dripping from his beard. "Basement's real," he said grimly. "And locked. She was home, too, looked right at us through the window like she owned the place." Hawk exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that came before storms. "This ain't gonna be a smash and grab," Grizz growled. "No," Hawk replied. "This is gonna be surgical. Clean. We're not just Savon, a kid. We're bringing down a monster. Back at the clubhouse, Tommy curled up on the couch, exhausted. Hawk watched him sleep, a kid who'd carried too much for too long. Brick leaned against the doorway. We call CPS, cops, you know how that goes. She's connected. Town'll bury it. Hawk's eyes narrowed. Then we don't give them a chance to bury it. He gathered the brothers around the table. The rain had stopped. The night air felt heavy with purpose. This is bigger than roughing up a deadbeat, Hawk said. We're talking about exposing her, protecting him, and making sure she can't touch another kid. Ever. Grizz cracked his knuckles. So what's the play? Hawk glanced at the coin resting on the table beside Tommy. The boy made a choice tonight. Now it's our turn. Outside, thunder rolled far off in the hills, like the road itself was waiting. By the next night, the Iron Vultures were ghosts in the neighborhood. Brick's beat-up van sat 2 blocks away from Tommy's house, disguised like any other contractor rig. Inside, Smoke adjusted binoculars while Grizz nursed bad coffee. Hawk parked his Harley behind a line of trees on the ridge overlooking the house. Through the scope, he saw Denise Harker through the kitchen window, dressed neat, smiling on the phone, like she was auditioning for a PTA poster. But when the call ended, the mask slipped. She yanked a curtain shut, stormed toward the basement door, and yelled something they couldn't hear. Different face for the world, Smoke muttered. Yeah, Hawk said quietly. And tonight, the world's gonna see the one she hides. They took shifts all night, watching her routines. Lights off at 11 o'clock. Basement light flicker at 1 a.m. Hawk didn't like what he saw, but he'd seen worse. And every time he looked at that house, he pictured Tommy's small voice in the clubhouse, she locks me in the basement. Morning came gray and cold. Hawk rode into town, pulling up outside a small diner where an old friend sat waiting, Sheriff Cal Jennings. They'd served in the military together before life took different roads. Cal eyed Hawk warily. Heard you boys are sniffing around the Harker place. Hawk leaned in. Kid showed up at our door. Basement. Bruises. She's dangerous, Cal. Cal sighed heavily. You think I don't know? She's on the mayor's fundraising committee. Complaints disappear before they hit my desk. So you're saying you can't help? I'm saying, if you move, I can't protect you. Hawk stood. Wasn't asking for protection. As he left, Cal called out, softer this time. Hawk, don't make me choose between the badge and you. Hawk didn't answer. Old ties still meant something. But Tommy didn't have time for politics, and neither did he. That night, Hawk sat with Tommy in the quiet corner of the clubhouse. The boy fiddled with the silver coin, avoiding eye contact. You ever talk about your dad? Hawk asked gently. Tommy hesitated. He used to take me on rides. Just me and him. We'd stop for ice cream, he said. Bikes make the world feel bigger. His voice cracked. Then he died. She threw out all his stuff. Except the coin. I hid it. Hawk felt a lump rise in his throat, something he hadn't felt in years. Your old man rode with us for a bit. Good man. You remind me of him. Tommy's eyes glimmered. Really? Yeah. And I'm telling you now, we're gonna make sure she never locks another door on you again. For the first time, Tommy's small shoulders relaxed a little. In the echo of engines and leather, he'd found something he'd almost forgotten existed, safety. Denise wasn't stupid. By the third day, she sensed eyes on her. Hawk noticed a car following Brick's van for 2 blocks, then disappearing. Smoke spotted her talking to a man outside a black SUV with tinted windows, someone she wasn't related to. She's getting spooked, Grizz said. Good, Hawk replied. Spooked people make mistakes. He gathered the club around the table, laying out a rough blueprint of her house. She's hiding something bigger than just abuse. We find it, we burn her lies down. Brick grinned. I've been waiting to say this for years, let's set a trap. They didn't plan violence. They planned exposure. Cameras. Timers. A safe extraction point for Tommy's belongings. And a way to make her secrets impossible to bury. This isn't about vengeance, Hawk reminded them. It's about justice. Real justice. For him. Every man in that room nodded. They weren't angels, but when they chose a side, they didn't flinch. Midnight. Rain again. The vultures moved like shadows. Brick and smoke cut the power to Denise's backyard floodlights, slipping through the fence with silent precision. Hawk waited by the ridge with a radio, watching the house through night vision goggles. Grizz crouched by the basement window. Here, he whispered. A small, reinforced door. Padlocked from the outside. He placed a tiny wireless camera above it, angled perfectly. If she tried to use it again, they'd have proof. Inside, they retrieved a few of Tommy's hidden belongings, a faded photo of him and his dad, a leather glove too big for his small hand. Evidence of a life before fear. As they slipped away, Hawk caught a glimpse of movement at the window, Denise's silhouette, watching the darkness. She knows someone's out here, Smoke muttered. Good, Hawk said, voice low and steady. Let her feel hunted for once. Morning sunlight barely broke through the gray clouds when Hawk's phone buzzed. It was Smoke. You need to see this. They huddled around a laptop in the clubhouse. The night vision feed from the hidden camera showed Denise creeping toward the basement at 2:14 a.m. She unlocked the padlock, yanked the door open, and dragged a small dog inside by its collar. She shoved it down the steps, slamming the door behind. The muffled whimpers filled the speakers. She's testing it, Brick muttered. Hawk's jaw tightened. She's showing her hand. She thinks no one's watching. He made a call. Maria, prep the paperwork. We're taking this higher. They handed the footage to a child welfare officer who wasn't part of the local network, a friend of Maria's from the next county over. Someone who wouldn't look the other way. This is enough to open an emergency file, she promised. But you need more if you want to break her grip for good. Hawk nodded. Then we'll get more. Denise had just stepped into a game she couldn't control. 2 nights later, Hawk's instincts proved right. Just past midnight, Maria's phone rang. Static, then a boy's shaky whisper, she's here. Tommy. Hawk grabbed his cut and was on the bike before Maria hung up. Engines roared behind him as the vultures followed into the rain-slick streets. When they arrived at Maria's house, the front gate hung open. One of the windows was shattered. Inside, lights flickered wildly. Tommy was in the hallway, clutching Lily's hand, both pale as ghosts. She came through the window, he stammered. Said she's taking us back. Said no one can stop her. In the living room, Hawk found the message, a single photograph of Tommy and his father, torn down the middle and taped to the wall with a kitchen knife. She's escalating, Hawk growled. Maria's hands trembled, but her voice didn't. Then she doesn't understand who she's dealing with. From that moment, Hawk knew, this wasn't just a rescue anymore. This was war. The next day, Hawk called a full meeting. Every patch holder sat at the table. Rain hammered the tin roof, like the sky itself was leaning in to listen. We gave her a chance to be exposed clean, Hawk said. She answered by breaking into our home. Threatening kids. Grizz slammed his fist into the table. So we end it. Hawk's gaze was cold steel. We end it smart. Brick laid out a map. She's got 2 brothers. Both ex-cons. They've been sniffing around Tommy's school. Surveillance picked them up twice. They're circling, Smoke added. Waiting for us to slip. Hawk stood. Then we don't slip. We draw the line right here. He tapped the clubhouse floor with his boot. From this moment on, those kids are under our protection. Any move she makes, any shadow that falls on them, we're there first. We don't hide. We stand. The roar that followed shook the walls. The Vultures weren't just bikers now. They were guardians. It came faster than anyone expected. That evening, Brick's van followed Tommy's school bus at a distance, standard watch. Halfway down Oak Ridge Road, a black pickup screeched out from a side street, blocking the bus. 2 men jumped out, Denise's brothers. One yanked the bus door open, shouting Tommy's name. Kids screamed. Brick slammed the van into gear. Not today. Within 30 seconds, Hawk and 2 others appeared from the opposite end, engines howling like war drums. The brothers froze, realizing they were trapped between steel and fury. Hawk dismounted slowly, rain dripping off his cut. Put the boy's name back in your mouth, he growled. One brother pulled a tire iron. Hawk didn't flinch. Bad move. Before the man could swing, Grizz tackled him from behind. The other fled, but Smoke's bike intercepted him like a wall. Sirens wailed in the distance, Cal's deputies. As they cuffed the brothers, Cal met Hawk's eyes. No words. Just a nod. The line had held. The footage from the ambush, combined with the basement video, was enough to crack the case open. Maria's contact pushed it straight to the state office. A court order was issued overnight. Early morning, Hawk rode beside the social workers and deputies as they rolled up to Denise's house. She stood in the doorway, perfect smile painted on, until she saw the Vultures behind the badge. Her mask shattered. You think this scares me? She hissed. No, Hawk said quietly. But the truth does. Inside, officers unearthed a basement lined with locks, a hidden closet full of confiscated Tommy's belongings, and financial records linking her to fraud schemes. She wasn't just abusive, she was dirty to the core. Tommy stood behind Hawk, watching as the woman who terrorized him was led away in cuffs. She spat and screamed, but no one listened anymore. Hawk knelt beside Tommy. It's over. Tommy clutched the coin so tight it left an imprint on his palm. For the first time, he believed it might be true. For days, Tommy barely spoke. Trauma doesn't disappear overnight, it unwinds slowly, like barbed wire being pulled from flesh. Hawk didn't push. Instead, the Vultures made him part of their world quietly. Every morning, they'd roll up to Maria's house with one extra helmet. One ride to school, never the same biker twice. Brick would tell jokes. Smoke taught him how to signal with his hand on the wind. Grizz showed him how to tighten a chain with precision. Little by little, the fear in Tommy's eyes melted. The boy who once whispered in the dark now laughed on open roads. And Maria? She watched from the porch, hand over her heart, knowing something sacred was happening, something no social worker could ever manufacture. Weeks passed. The legal battle wrapped up swiftly. Denise's lies had tangled themselves into a noose. She faced multiple charges: child endangerment, fraud, and trespassing. She wouldn't be coming back. Tommy's father, still overseas, called in tears. I don't know how to thank them, he said. You don't, Maria replied. You join them. The Vultures made it clear, Tommy wasn't charity. He was family. At the clubhouse, Hawk took Tommy aside one evening. The fire pit crackled, sparks rising into the starry sky. Hawk pulled out a small leather pouch. Inside was a silver coin, not the one Tommy had been given before, but something older. "This belonged to my brother," Hawk said. "He gave it to me when I was your age. Said it was a promise, never ride alone." Tommy stared at it, eyes wide. "This isn't a toy," Hawk continued. "It's a bond. You carry this, you carry us." Tommy closed his fingers around it. "I won't let you down." Hawk's voice softened. "Kid, you already didn't." The Vultures had their own traditions. And one of them was the Ride of Honor, a silent procession held at dawn, reserved only for those who'd proven courage in the face of darkness. Tommy didn't know it was coming. Maria dressed him in a leather vest that morning, not with patches, but with a single stitched word on the back, "Honored." When he stepped outside, 30 bikes were lined up down the street. Engines idling low. Hawk motioned him forward. Tommy climbed onto the back of Hawk's bike. As they pulled out, the others followed, a river of chrome and thunder flowing through quiet morning streets. No words. Just the sound of freedom. Neighbors peeked out of windows. Some saluted. Others wiped their eyes. It wasn't a spectacle. It was a statement. Tommy looked up at the horizon and, for the first time in his life, didn't feel small. Years later, the story of the boy who asked the bikers for help became a kind of legend in town. New kids whispered about it at school. Parents told it to remind their children that monsters don't always win. And at the clubhouse, the framed vest with "Honored" hung near the door, a reminder of what they stood for. Tommy visited often. Sometimes with Maria. Sometimes alone. He grew taller, more confident, carrying himself with the quiet strength of someone who had looked fear in the eye and didn't blink. One night, Hawk caught him tinkering with Brick's old bike in the garage. "You thinking of riding someday?" Hawk asked. Tommy smiled. "Someday?" He fired the engine to life. Soon. Years passed. Faces changed. Roads shifted. But some stories keep writing. On a warm summer night, a new boy showed up at the clubhouse gates, scared, alone, clutching a folded piece of paper. Before anyone else could move, a man stepped out of the garage, leather vest on, hair tied back. On the back of his cut, under the Vulture's emblem, was a single name stitched, Tommy. He knelt in front of the boy, just like Hawk once did with him. "You found the right people," he said, voice calm but strong. "Tell me what happened." The boy whispered his story. Tommy reached into his pocket, pulled out a small coin, and pressed it into the boy's hand. "You're not alone anymore." Engines roared to life in the background, a new ride beginning, as the legacy rolled on into the night.